Hello everyone. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Let's begin. I moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood on the edge of town, the kind of place where everyone waves, but no one really talks. After a messy breakup, I wanted peace and distance from everything familiar. The streets were lined with trimmed hedges, white mailboxes, and that strange silence that only small towns have at night. My new neighbor, Mr. Reeves, seemed like part of that calm. Mid-50s, graying hair, always in a plaid shirt, and always smiling. Too much, maybe. But I brushed it off as kindness. For the first few weeks, he acted like any other neighbor. He'd nod when I parked, ask if I needed help with groceries, or chat about the weather. Once, he even handed me a plate of cookies to welcome me to the block. They tasted fine. But something about him lingered in my mind afterward. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and when I thanked him, he just stood there for a second too long before turning away. Then, small things started happening. I'd find my garbage bin slightly moved in the mornings, or my garden hose uncoiled across the lawn. One evening, while taking out the trash, I thought I saw someone standing behind his window, not moving, just staring. The light flickered and the figure was gone. I told myself it was a trick of the shadows. A week later, I came home late from work. It was windy and cold, and as I passed his house, I noticed his front door was ajar. The house was dark inside. I called out his name. "Mr. Reeves?" No answer. But I swear I heard faint footsteps retreating deeper into the house. I hesitated, then left, convincing myself it wasn't my business. The next morning I found a note under my doormat. It said, "You shouldn't leave your lights on after midnight. Some people notice." No signature. Just those words written in neat, almost perfect handwriting. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe a prank from local kids. But after that, every night when I turned off my bedroom light, I could see a faint orange glow seeping through my curtains. It was coming from his house, and sometimes, if I looked closely, I'd see him, standing still by his window, staring at mine. No phone in hand, no movement, just watching. I started keeping my blinds closed. But one night, while taking out the trash around 2 a.m., I heard a voice behind the wooden fence. "You keep strange hours, Daniel." It was him, his tone calm but wrong. He stood there, half his face hidden in shadow, a flashlight pointed toward the ground. His smile was tight, unnatural. I muttered something about work and hurried inside. The next morning, muddy footprints trailed from the trash bins all the way to my back door. That was when I decided to buy cameras. Cheap motion sensors, and one small backyard cam. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, but that night I barely slept. At 3:18 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Backyard. My heart pounded as I opened the live feed. He was there, standing perfectly still under the motion light, his head tilted slightly upward, staring straight into the camera. For almost 3 full minutes he didn't move. Then he leaned closer, so close that his face filled the frame, and whispered something I couldn't hear before walking out of view. I called the police in the morning. They showed up, talked to him, then came back with polite smiles. "He says he was checking for raccoons," one officer told me. "Probably just a misunderstanding. Try to relax." But the way they looked at me, half dismissive, half sympathetic, made me realize they didn't believe anything was wrong. 2 days later, he was gone. Just like that, his house empty, curtains drawn, mailbox stuffed with old flyers. When I asked around, neighbors acted confused. None of them remembered anyone named Reeves ever living there. The real estate agent's sign appeared on his lawn a week later, claiming the property had been vacant for months. That night, my camera pinged again. 3:18 a.m., the same time. The feed showed the motion light flicker on, and for a moment the frame filled with static. When it cleared, the backyard was empty, except my back door was slowly creaking open, inch by inch. I ran downstairs, heart hammering, but the door was locked. No one there. I checked the footage again, but now all I could see was static. Still, for half a second before it cleared, I swear I caught a glimpse of his face. That same cold smile, frozen like a photograph. Since then, my camera keeps sending motion alerts almost every night around the same time. Most are nothing. Wind, rain, maybe a stray animal. But sometimes when I open the live feed, I can hear faint breathing through the static. And every time I check the footage in the morning, the timestamp always stops at 3:18 a.m. I'm Emily. I moved into a small rental house last year, in one of those quiet, middle-class neighborhoods that look peaceful from the outside. Tree-lined streets, kids on bikes, sprinklers at sunset. But from the very first night, I noticed something strange. The house across the street, 112 Maple Drive, never turned off its lights. Ever. At first, I thought maybe the owner was elderly or afraid of the dark. But even at 3 or 4 in the morning, I could see the soft orange glow from every window. Curtains were always drawn, yet faint silhouettes moved behind them. Slow, deliberate, like someone pacing back and forth. My landlord said the place belonged to a widow named Mrs. Holloway, a sweet old lady who keeps to herself. Yet in all the months I lived there, I never once saw her. What I did see were figures in those windows. Tall, slender shapes that sometimes moved in pairs, sometimes alone, always retreating just when I tried to focus. One sleepless night, I stood at my window with a cup of tea, watching the glow flicker, when one of the figures suddenly stopped and turned toward me. It stood completely still for a full minute before the lights dimmed and the curtains shifted. That night, I closed every curtain in my house and left a lamp on, but around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of static. My TV had turned itself on, white noise filling the room, and in the reflection of the screen I saw my living room window, and a dark silhouette standing outside it. I ran to the porch, but the street was empty except for the faint yellow light spilling from 112 Maple. The front door there was cracked open, just enough to see blackness inside. Against my better judgment, I crossed the street with my phone flashlight. The air grew colder the closer I got, as if the temperature dropped with every step. Inside, the smell hit first. Dust and something metallic. Every light was blazing, yet the place looked abandoned. Furniture draped in sheets, a piano covered in gray dust, and on the dining table, 3 teacups, still steaming. My hands trembled as I turned to leave, when footsteps echoed upstairs, slow and heavy. I whispered hello. The steps stopped, and one by one, the hallway lights began shutting off until only the living room remained lit. A shadow started descending the stairs, and that was enough. I bolted. Out the door, across the street, and into my house, locking every window before waiting for dawn. When morning came, I finally looked outside and froze. The lights at 112 Maple were off for the first time. Curtains open, the house completely empty. Later, the landlord told me Mrs. Holloway had died years ago and the property had been vacant since 2017. I tried to explain what I'd seen. The lights, the teacups, the figures, but he just laughed it off, said maybe squatters broke in. Yet that same night, the lights across the street came back on, brighter than before, and standing at the window was Mrs. Holloway herself, pale, still, holding one of those teacups, staring straight at me. I left the next morning without breaking the lease, leaving everything behind. A month later, the realtor called, asking if I knew about people squatting in 112 Maple. She said they found 3 sets of footprints in the dust. One small, one tall, and one leading out the front door, across the street, right up to my porch. But that wasn't the last time I saw her, because last week, at my new apartment across town, the neighbors complained that my lights never go off. My name's Dylan. I moved into a quiet cul-de-sac last summer, one of those peaceful, picture-perfect neighborhoods where every driveway gleams and every lawn looks identical, the kind of place where people wave but don't really know each other. Everything was calm until I noticed my next-door neighbor, Mr. Harlan, a man in his late 50s who always wore the same thing. gray cargo shorts, a tucked-in polo, thick glasses, and that blank expression that never changed. He never smiled, never waved, just stared. I thought he was harmless until one night, around midnight, I heard it. The low drone of a lawnmower. When I looked outside, I saw him pushing it across his yard, wearing a headlamp, the beam cutting through the dark. His house was completely unlit, his movements slow and mechanical, as if he couldn't see me watching. He mowed for nearly 2 hours before stopping. The next day, when I joked about it to another neighbor, Mrs. Lang, her face went pale. She warned me quietly, "Don't mess with him. Keep your curtains closed after dark." I didn't understand. Until the mowing stopped, because then he started watching. Every night, right at midnight, he'd walk onto his porch and just stand there, scanning the neighborhood house by house. Sometimes he held that same headlamp, sometimes nothing at all, but he always ended by staring at my house last. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I turned off all my lights and waited. At 12:01, his porch light flicked on. At 12:03, the door creaked open. He stepped outside, but this time he wasn't alone. 3 others followed him out, all dressed just like him, moving in eerie unison. Together, they began mowing invisible lines in the air, the sound of blades whirring though the grass didn't move. Through my phone's camera, they vanished, just an empty lawn. But through my eyes, they were still there, cutting at nothing. Then the sound stopped. Mr. Harlan turned his head toward me and locked eyes. The next morning, I found a perfect rectangle burned into my driveway, its edges sharp, faintly smoking. I called the HOA to report him, but the woman on the line hesitated before saying, "Sir, there's no record of a Mr. Harlan living there. That property's been vacant since 2015. I ran outside, and she was right. His house looked abandoned, the paint peeling, mailbox overflowing, windows empty. But as I stepped closer, the faint smell of gasoline filled the air, and I saw a small tag tied to the mailbox handle, cut short before it grows. That night, the mower started again, this time closer. I looked outside and froze. He was mowing my lawn. Each pass came nearer to the house, the hum louder, until he stopped beneath my window and slowly lifted his hand, pointing straight at me. My phone was dead, the lights flickered, and the sound filled the walls from inside. When I finally dared to look again, the yard was empty, but a perfect square of freshly cut grass surrounded my home. The next morning, the police found nothing. No lines, no burns, not even tire marks. The officer, though, looked uneasy. Before leaving, he said, "If you hear it again, don't go near the windows." 2 nights later, it returned. I sat frozen, listening to that slow mechanical hum circling my house. Then it stopped, right under my window, followed by 3 dull knocks. The next morning, there was no grass left around my house, just bare dirt, like it had been shaved away. And across the street, Mr. Harlan stood there again, this time smiling, waving with a rake in his hand, while behind him his lawn was perfectly green. I moved 2 weeks later, but last night, my new neighbor sent me a photo. It showed a man in gray cargo shorts mowing his yard at midnight.